Hello there, sim racers, and welcome to a new episode of my race notes. Now today I want to talk about setup. This has been requested a lot, so let's get right into it. I have here the Ferrari 488 GT3. I think GT3 cars might be of your liking at Barcelona Moto, because I don't like that chicane. This is the default setup I have loaded, and to start with I will change the traction control and ABS. Let's save it and let's see what's going on. Now I have driven a couple of laps before making this video, just to have a bit more preparation, and it will probably take quite a long time to make a proper setup. I mean, it could take hours if you want to do it right, and if you want to get it fast and get a fast lap and all that. But you have to start somewhere. So let's start here and let's see what we can do. I try to do it a bit structured. And I want to explain a few things about what these values do, more so than what they really are. Like, for example, the camber, you have the negative camber, it's the way the wheel is angled with respect of the tarmac and the... And these are things that you can read in any setup guide. So the most basic stuff, I don't really want to tell too much about it. It will take too much time, but more the effect of it. Now I have some apps to help me. One of those apps is this tire pressure, tire PSI thing. Running a bit wide without paying attention. And it will tell you the optimum tire pressure. Now the optimum pressure in Assetto Corsa is whether it's entirely realistic, I'm not sure, but it's a good indication. Generally in real life, you would expect lower pressures for slower corners and higher pressure for fast corners with much downforce. But getting sort of ideal, and it often works for a balance. Now, what are the things that I'm feeling at the moment? Well, this feels alright, pretty balanced, a little bit oversteer. Car wants to oversteer. Especially on acceleration, and under turning it, and here you can see it. That's a very clear example. So it understeers on entry and it oversteers on the exit, and it's quite snappy on the exit, I think. So that might tell me that it has something to do with the differential, and the differential is the way, you know, the inner and outer wheels are spinning. Again, something you can look up, and I'm probably not the right person to explain it in detail. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a pro driver. But I know what a change in settings does. A higher value generally creates more understeer, and a lower value more oversteer on acceleration. But when you have oversteer on a high value, it can be really snappy and hard to catch, while it's more predictable and more slower in sort of building up with a lower value. So I had a look at the RSR times of this track and this car. Under these conditions, so conditions like this, 26 degrees, optimum track temps, 42, 43. It's a 42 high, I think that's the fastest with those conditions. So we're aiming for now for 43, but let's see if we can get in the 44s first. This is a 45.9. My laps aren't perfect, partly because I can't fully concentrate because I'm talking and explaining. Here you can see what that does if you have a little moment. You lose 3, maybe even 4 tenths, just for a bit of oversteer. Of course, this car doesn't like to, just as the 455 GT2, it doesn't want to rev all the way. It has a sort of optimum. And again, a little bit of oversteer. Before I tell you what the things are that you might want to start with when creating a setup, I mean, it's always helpful to start with something someone else made, just because it's sort of made for a certain track or whatever, and it saves you some time. But for now, we'll start with the default. As you might be able to tell, I am on medium tires. Medium tires, well, apart from the temperature, which is already pretty high, as you can see, it's red. Red is not good. Green is good. Well, here you go. So, apart from those tire temps, you can push them for a bit longer, which is really helpful compared to soft tires. And another thing that helps, if you have less grippy tires, it's easier to feel the balance of the car, whether it's understeer, oversteer, with moment. Another thing that I notice here is that the car really wants to oversteer on the curbstones. Now that has probably something to do with the amount of oversteer when I press the throttle, but that's something to work on. So what do we start with? Well, the tire pressures are pretty obvious. I see that the front right tire is could be a little harder. The rear tires are probably good. The rear left is a little too high, but I have noticed that it's getting red. And one way to prevent that from happening is to change the tire pressure. Okay, so I think that's enough for now. I'll just skip to the pits. Another thing to start with is the gear ratio. Now, I noticed that on the straight, the gears are a little too long, also in some slower corners, and I might want to lower them. So from 331 to 317 was quite a jump, but we'll see what happens. So this could be a bit higher. I'm gonna make this left rear a little bit higher as well, just to combat the heat in the tire. Fuel for now it's fine. Maybe I should leave this for now. One thing that I noticed that it wants to understeer on entry, and one way to make it turn in a little better is to increase the front toe in. You don't want a positive value on the front, you just don't. A more negative value, and then, well, the rear I'm gonna make it a little lower, even though I have a bit of oversteer, and you might get some more stability if you have more positive toe on the rear. But since I have been struggling with the heat, I want to change it a bit. So it's quite oversteery, so I'm gonna lower the anti-roll bar. And then we have the springs. So Assetto Corsa likes to have softer springs. That's just the way the game works. I don't know why. So we'll do that. I'll just lower it by 2 clicks. You can also see that the toe is increasing by doing that. These are moving by 5 Newton per millimeter. Here it's 10 per each click. So 2 clicks equals 4 clicks here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just so I have a bit more play, I'm gonna make it a bit lower still. Now the ride height, minimum ride height is 55 on both the front and the rear. So I want to get the car as low as possible. But one thing with cars like this, with downforce, is they usually have a sort of optimum ride height. Now, this is just one value. When the car is driving, the ride height is not static. When you're driving faster in a car with downforce, the car will get lower because the springs are not, they're not entirely stiff. So all this force pushing the car down makes the car lower. So when you're driving faster, if the downforce is increasing while driving faster, then it means that you get more and more downforce. Now, if the car is too low for, so the downforce the air can stall basically, or the wings can stall, whatever you call it, then you'll notice that the downforce is going down when you're getting more speed. Now, I think this might be 60, about 60 might be right. So, well, 59, that's about fine. And the rear, I wanna just make it real low. About the same. Also, the spring is a little lower, so it will have more effect. Let's call it 1A. More effects on the rear when you have downforce. So those are a couple of things to start with. Now I think the toe is a bit too much. So let's lower that. So it's minus 0.2 more or less, and I lowered this by 1, and also lowering the spring made that change a bit. The camber for now, I mean, it seems to be really high. But yeah, you know what? I'm gonna make him lower by 2 clicks. And also this is something that more camber means more heat in the tires. So let's test it. Let's see what it does. So I made quite a lot of changes, and normally you would want to make 1 or 2 changes at a time, so you have a real clear sense of what it's doing to the car. So what happens if you only... It's a little bit oversteer here. It feels kind of nice, predictable. What happens if you, for example, made the front anti-roll bar really stiff or really soft compared to the rear one? Obviously, you'll notice a lot more understeer or oversteer in general. But how does that feel on every section of the corner, every section of the track? Because a corner where the braking zone goes up, or the corner goes up, well, that's very snappy. And I have an overheated tire, so that sucks. When a corner goes up, it's very different from a corner that goes down because of gravity. Now, one thing I want to show you while cooling my tires a little bit is the Wings app. Now you have to have the developers apps enabled. You can do that in some ini file .ini. You have to Google how that works. Now I'm leaning quite a bit on the front, and I see that the balance is about 49. So when I slow down, the front gets lower. I get more downforce on the front, which makes a lot of sense. So what am I looking at with this Wings app? There are 2 numbers that are interesting for me, which is this percentage here, the front downforce, basically. So 49 to 50% of the downforce is on the front of the car. Now when I accelerate, that is about 47, 48%. When I'm driving at the same speed or slowing down, it's 49 to 50%. So that means Of course, when I accelerate, the rear goes down and the front goes up. When I slow down, the rear goes up and the front goes down. So that tells me that on both these occasions, when the car gets lower, it gets more downforce. So maybe I can even lower the car further still. A little bit of oversteer. So what happens here? When I'm braking hard and have a lot of speed, if the car is too low, then the balance will shift a lot. Like it will be really jittery, and it can tell me that the front is getting too low, basically, right? Also, bumps have that sort of effect, of course. So, let's test that. Let's see what happens. 48, 49, 50, 49, braking. Now, when I pressed the brake real hard, in the beginning of the braking zone, I saw it went down just a fraction of a second to 3 something. So that means that when I'm driving really fast and I'm braking really hard, the front gets so low that it loses a bit of front downforce. And you want the car to be as low as possible at any time. So, but it's only at a very high speed, and I think I can lower the car a little bit more. But before I do that, let's remember it. Let's stick it in our minds, and let's test a little more. So now that the tires are a bit better up the temperature, let's see what I can do. I'm gonna try and concentrate a little bit. Also, if you're comparing laps, of course you want to make sure the laps are as equal as possible, that you do it on the same lap with the same amount of fuel, with the same grip in the tires, the same track temperature and grip. Those are things that can change over time. A little bit of oversteer still, but already, even without pushing too hard, I'm improving. So I'm getting 45 right now. Let's see if I can get into the 44s. Braking late, a little bit too late, which is a real shame. I'm losing a bit of time. Trying to balance the car. It's really, it's pointing towards a little bit of oversteer, which I kind of like in that turn. Also, the entry, it's much more willing to turn in. So I think the toe wheel did have a large effect. A little late braking. Still reasonably snappy when I accelerate. Here again. Wow, that's not a great exit. Not a great way to... Okay, with a bit of a tank slapper there. That little curb and that little oversteer, it makes it really hard for me. What I want to do, first of all, I think the travel range, you want to have it less than the actual ride height, of course. Especially on a car like this. Put it at 50. And that's the amount of movement it can have. And I'm gonna lower the rear anti-roll bar by 1, because in some turns I think it just oversteers just tiny amount too much. Now I kind of like oversteer, and it's great, but But it's so much on the limit, this car already, especially with the tire temperatures, that I think might be a little bit too much. And you know, if you heat the tires, then it won't really be great. Now, the oversteer that we just suffered in that uphill right turn, it's kind of bumpy. It has this bit of camber and this curbstone, and if it's going, it's going. So there seems to be a thing in Assetto Corsa, and it's something that has been bothering me for quite a long time. And there have been a few suggestions made what could combat it. According to one modder, the front arbs could be too stiff. Now, I doubt that with a value of 3. I don't think that's it. High values of camber really work, and a high value of rear camber also seems to work. Now, I have quite a high value already. Maybe I'm gonna add a little bit still, because I know that about minus 3.4 is pretty good for a GT3 car, even when turning in, when cornering. So let's try to leave it at that. And the rear is quite much already, so that's probably not it. Now, another thing to combat something like the oversteer might be a softer suspension, more ride height, or travel range. Now, the travel range was already quite high. The ride height is fine, as far as I could tell. The rear was having still a fine amount of grip. Could be the rear wing, could be the aero. And one other thing that someone told me was to increase the front fast bump and rebound. Now, I see the fast bump is really low, so I'm just gonna 10 clicks. Let's try it, you know. I'm going to pause the video here and cut it into 2 parts, since the video is getting quite long. I'll be uploading the second part of this video soon, and hopefully you'll be up for watching it then. For now, thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next time. Bye bye.